Hi, Collins. Have you joined the meeting?
Hey, give me a minute. All right, are you there?
I am. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing well. Just the heat. The heat is
Hmm.
terrible this side of the country.
Are you in?
I'm in Wisconsin.
Okay, I was gonna say where.
Northern Wisconsin.
Gotcha. That's where you live there, but you're at UMass, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's why I wasn't sure where you
Thank
actually
you.
were. Um, so it looks like I did start this meeting, but then you're the host now because you're signed in as the graduate student committee.
You can I can share the post with you or I can leave this because I thought you would use the registered Zoom, but it doesn't matter because we're not the ones recording. It's NARST so that they can post.
Okay.
Let's see if I can share the host. But
Where
it
did
should
you
be
s
fine.
Okay, where did you say you thought I would join from? Because what I did to join is I just went to the calendar invite and it was there. Oh.
Okay. I thought you. Hey, Alexander.
Hey.
Oh yeah, folks are going to be streaming in about now. So
Yeah, we
are
can do it
you good
later.
with introducing our guest when she comes in?
The only problem is I don't know how to say her name.
Kayumova. It's
Kayumova, Dr. Kayumova. Okay.
Dr. Kayumova. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she taught me when I started at the University of Massachusetts. Those,
Gotcha.
the preliminary courses and stuff like that is so good.
Yeah, I have the slides up and everything, but I had
Nice.
asked I did email her. I haven't heard from her, so I assume that she'll be attending because she has it
Yes,
on her calendar.
I think yes, she will. I saw her
Yeah.
feedback. I saw her feedback. I'm trying to see if I can add you as the host as well.
I don't need to be the host. I just wanted to
Yeah,
know what
I think,
the,
and you can still, do you want to share? I think you can still share.
yeah, I think I can still share.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it doesn't say,
Nice.
yeah.
That's perfect.
So I'll go ahead and share those
I
slideshows.
typically put the first page so as
Mhm.
people are coming in, you can see that.
Sounds good. And so now you can see that.
Wow, yes, perfect.
Okay.
Just wait for folks. Keep joining the meeting.
Yeah, I really want to increase our viewership of or like attendance at these.
Yeah,
So I've got to
these,
figure out how to do that.
yes. Got some lots of people like this one, 36 people did what? Registered to attend. But with graduate students sometimes it's just difficult to I just want to see how it's seen on another device. Okay. Yeah, sometimes with graduate students, they've been given assignments, things like that. And the
Oh
timing
yeah.
might just be difficult. But a lot of people sometimes register for this event.
Okay.
That's why we have a recording. So the other thing that we can do going forward is, although it might be difficult in terms of planning, like change the times. But for it might confuse regular
Yeah.
attenders. Like if you
No, I
change
think
different times, like there's some lady who joins from India and there's another one who joins from Turkey. What's the time? So if we change the times a lot, it might be difficult for them.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, lots of people register to
Hello.
attend these meetings.
Would you like me to leave and come back?
No. It's okay. We're still waiting for people to stream in, and
Okay.
it's actually time. Uh, Thank you for making time to inspire graduate students, to support graduate students in their
Yeah.
growth as we become outstanding scholars like you. I am
Thank
I'm actually excited because I consider you one of my mentors. Like
you.
you've connected me with guys like John. I remember Settlage when I needed to reach out to him. Uh, I really appreciate you. So I'm so excited. I hope the other people will just also benefit from you as much as I have.
Thank you. And I tried to use the PowerPoint that you all shared with me
Mhm.
um, to prepare my own PowerPoint, just in case if there are other things you would like me to discuss, or if it's something else is going to be more helpful, just feel free to stop me anytime.
Yeah, that sounds great. I just have a few slides like to introduce, and it sounds like Collins might have a little bit more of an introduction as well because you have such a personal relationship there. But and then I'll stop sharing, and then you can just share your screen to go through your slides, if that works.
Sounds perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you to everybody who is showing up to our graduate Career Steps webinar series. My name is Lauren Browning. This is my very first one that I'm hosting, so bear with me if there's any hiccups or anything like that. We've got Collins, who is our graduate student committee president, and then I am just trying to help out and take one of the many things that he does off of his plate. I really think this is something that as graduate students we can all benefit from. And so I was really excited to do this and meet new professors and people who are not professors in general and just people of the general NARST community and hopefully connect you all with some fabulous mentors and whatnot as well. So with that, I will go ahead. We've got our quote here. So if I have seen it further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. So thinking about using this quote as an idea of representing the reason that we go further is because we have people like Dr. Kaimova to speak with us. Uh, you all are here, but you know that this is a webinar. We do hold it once a month, so we really appreciate such a robust turnout today. And we just really want to empower each and every one of you through listening to our more senior colleagues and what they've been through in their journeys. And then we do have another presentation next month as well, and I'll talk about that at the very end. So Dr. Kayamova, she'll talk for a little bit, for 20 to 30 minutes about her journey. And then we will have some time for Q&A and just some practical advice for graduate students and things like that. And with that, why did it stop? Okay, there we go. Um, so today we have, oh, no, sorry. Told you there'd be a hiccup. I'm new at this. So we have Dr. Kayamova. She's a professor and Department of STEM and Education at UMass Dartmouth. Is that correct, I believe? And then she's also the director of the, I'm gonna not say that right, but
Corporate Center.
the Caput Center for
Yes.
Research and Innovation for STEM education, and then also the director of Science, Language, and Identity Research Lab. So she wears many different hats, and we're very lucky to have her here today. I know, like I said, Collins, this is one of your mentors in your program. So if you'd like to speak a little bit more, I'm sure to introduce, we would love that.
Yeah, I don't want to take much time because I believe that she has a lot to offer. And these events are meant to support graduate students so that we can learn from accomplished PhDs like Dr. Karimova. Because we know that a lot of people coming into academia or who are about to graduate sometimes don't know where to begin or even thinking about the journey ahead, uh, what prospects are out there and how to plan for their academic journeys. So our guests here share their personal stories, complete with the challenges that they faced during their graduate studies and afterwards, pivotal moments, unexpected opportunities that they came across. And our speakers also bring to life a myriad routes to career success because we have people who have gone out of academia and they're doing other things, but they come to help just show graduate students what is possible. And more than providing inspiration, we hope these sessions will give us concrete strategies, provide resources and networks we can leverage as we craft our own paths as graduate students. So without further ado, I'm just so excited and really appreciate Dr. Kalimova for making time for us. And thank you all for joining. My name is Collins Morga, as Lauren said, graduate student coordinator. And yeah, the floor is yours, Dr. Kalimova. Take it away.
Uh, Thank you, everybody. So, the ways in which I thought that I could talk today to give you some important decisions that shaped my academic career. Uh, so, I'm a professor and a chair in the Department of STEM Education and Teacher Development. I'm also the director of the Caput Center for the STEM Innovation in education. I also direct the lab that I have founded, Science, Language, Identity, and Research Lab. As of today, I'm also executive board member for NARST and the associate editor for Science Education and Journal of Science Teacher Education. Um, to actually, I would like to stop here now. To give you a little bit of my own background, the reason I wanted to pursue a PhD because I was considered as a good math and science teacher where I worked with the children and youth, but I was also always interested in understanding the learning processes and how I can um, contribute to understanding learning better. And that kind of prompted me to pursue a PhD. I applied to multiple programs, and depending on my own situation at the time, I had two young kids, and I was also expecting another baby. So I had a partner, so I had to stay within a certain kind of vicinity. So I applied to, if I remember, like maybe like four programs close to my vicinity and got accepted, I think, from three of those. And then the pivotal point for me, turning point, was when one of the programs that I applied was UGA, University of Georgia, and Stephanie Jones was at the time was a graduate coordinator. She interviewed with me, and I And I still remember what she told me. She said, Shaknoz, if you come here, we will take you under our wings. And I have no idea why that really kind of mattered to me in the moment, when I was really contemplating whether I should do it or not. And then the next thing she said, she didn't only say that, she said, we also want to match you with the right advisor so that you will be able to really uh, have opportunities that you want pursuing this degree. And she connected me with the Corey Buxton, who at the time had a large NSF project, and he showed a lot of excitement about myself, and then coming and working for this project. So that kind of Corey Buxton and Stephanie Jones were kind of pivotal people in relation to for me to choose the program. And just to give you the comparison, there were number by national ranking, there were number one, number two programs that I applied as well. But I think, you know, that matching and what they said, I believe was a turning point for me. So when I started at the UGA, as I said, Corey just had a large NSF project, and it just happened to be that that first year I was a only research project. And just to give you a little bit about the project, so we had more than 10 teachers. Um, if I remember correctly right now, and this is 10 years ago, um, we had more than like five, I think, schools. More than 1,000 students, professional development that we did with the teachers, family workshops that we did over the weekends on Saturdays, summer programs, classroom observations. We also developed our own assessment, did pre and post assessments, and also we read each assessment because it was a constructive response assessments. And so as the first year, as the only research assistant in the project, I was immersed in all parts of the project. It was at times it was so overwhelming because I knew everything that needed to be done, and I had no idea how I would be able to do it, both in terms of time or in terms of qualifications. But one of the amazing things was that the Corey, my advisor, he always had this like sense of confidence that I can do it and I will be able to do it. And also, I also had a mindset that this was not about the project. It was not about the specific tasks, but I looked at it as a learning opportunity. I will learn how to do observations. I will learn how to do interviews. I will learn how to do assessments. So each part of the project became my own kind of learning, which gave me a lot of joy. I was recently actually, as a tangential, I was listening to Matt Damon's interview about working for Christopher Nolan and how hard, in what kind of hard conditions they were working. And if it was his younger self, he would probably have complained, but now he felt a lot of joy. And it really resonated with me because there were a lot of responsibilities, but I felt immense joy because I felt like I was learning so much and so fast. And because also I was aware of my limitations in relation to not knowing how to do qualitative research, not knowing how to do quantitative research, and working with all these people and PIs and not knowing anything in relation to the project that as the first year student, I also went above and beyond to take classes both within my department, outside my department, do a lot of ratings and seek opportunities to really reach out to different professors and learn about what they were teaching. If I could take the class, I would take the class. Otherwise, I would do a directed study with them and then try to learn anything and everything that I felt like I did not know. And there was a lot of things that I didn't know. So that became also over time really kind of big advantage that I had. Again, at the time I did not know it, but now looking at it, it intentionally kind of built an interdisciplinary foundation that I needed moving forward. And this also allowed me actually, because I was so close to all the data, I was so close to everything that we were doing. At the times, I think I knew better than the PIs about all aspects of the project. And because at the same time I was reading and learning all these methods and theories, uh, every time when I would look at the classroom interviews or any other kind of data, I would be able to see all that work through the papers I was reading, the theories I was reading. So that also led itself to publications from like, if I remember, like from the first 6 months of the project that I was involved in. The next turning point was finding my own questions. As I told you, I started with the two kids, young kids, and I also had a newborn. I think my newborn was 7 days old when I started the PhD. And my husband was at another institution at another state. So I was actually single, almost like a single mom with a newborn and two young kids. Um, and this full-time job in a PhD. So one of my goals was to be done as soon as possible because I knew that I will not be able to otherwise be done. Like I had friends who, for these reasons, would extend their PhDs, which is also, I think, another way to go. But knowing my own personality, I knew that this is not, I would not be able to sustain this quote unquote joy and excitement and motivation for a very long time. So as I was immersed in the research, I started developing my own research questions. And then as I was taking classes, as I was doing readings, I also used that to develop my own ideas and then develop my own dissertation. So as I was doing the work from a day one, I also had like a mindset that I will finish PhD as soon as possible. I will have my dissertation. So by the third year, I actually developed my dissertation from LISL, but with my own questions, with my own data in ways that was very different from the work that the Corey was doing, but extending the work with my own theoretical framework and then doing my in-depth study with multilingual youth and the science teachers and started building publication record and conference record. And as I went to conferences and did my publications, I actually was also be able to connect with the scholars and kind of establish my own voice. People started to know me, not only Corey's student at the time, but also as a Shaknoza who's interested in these topics. So Corey's work and NSF project and that research was foundational for me to build my own dissertation, to build my own ideas and extend that work, and also do it within the time frame, that limited time frame that I kind of charted for myself. So by the end of, I think, my third year or beginning or the end of the third year, Corey actually pushed me to apply for jobs just to practice the talk. And he said, "Oh, I still remember." He's like, "Don't worry about getting a job. Just go out and then practice about, talking about your work and acting like a faculty member." And I think the first three places that I went, I got offers. But again, it was a very confusing at the time for me because I was not fully done with my dissertation. Even though this was what I wanted, it also felt surreal that I was getting these job offers. Um, so I was contemplating whether or not I should do a postdoc, wait. And another mentor, Joe Tobin, he is in early childhood and anthropology. He's one of the like top known anthropologists in the field. Um, he invited me to his house. He had a barbecue party, and I shared with him, I got these job offers, but I'm thinking maybe not accepting and going to postdoc and then, going to, certain institutions that I'm interested in. And I remember him saying, he said, Chaknoza, like, what are you talking about? You want to start your tenure earlier. You never know what's going to happen with the job market the next year. You have a good tenure track positions and offers, and starting it early and building your own research is more important than going to a postdoc. And because I knew him as a scholar, and I took his advice, I talked to him, the Corey had the same advice. So I picked one of the offers, and it was UMass Dartmouth. I had certain conditions. So we had a two-body problem, which meant that I it was not enough for me to get an offer. I also needed an offer for my husband, a tenure track offer, because at the time he was an assistant professor. So I had to negotiate an offer for him. As a family, we wanted to live in East Coast, so that mattered for us. And then I also wanted to make sure that I will have an access to multilingual communities and schools. Um, and then that I would have an opportunity to build an independent research agenda, that the university would give me a startup package that would allow me, to build my independent research agenda. So when all these conditions were met, I picked UMass Dartmouth, and I'm very privileged and lucky that they picked me. Um, the fifth turning point was now betting on my own ideas. So I was a new faculty member, um, and I was getting lots of different advices from lots of different people. And mind you, the kind of research that I'm doing today, 10 years ago, was not as popular as it is today. Um, the kind of things that I was talking and writing about at the time was marginal. So I remember at one of my AERA presentations, I met an NSF program director and shared my ideas. And after listening to me, he told me, go home and write an NSF career. And if I'm not mistaken, it was sometime in April, and the grant was due, I think, sometime in June. And so I had nothing, just ideas at the time. Uh, I shared it with a couple other mentors. They told me to wait and then to instead work on my publications. But then one of the mentors told me, you can just spend the next 2 months writing this, and then if it happens, it happens. Otherwise, you have all the rest of the time to work on your publications. So I kind of took that advice. And then I wrote my first NSF career proposal. And usually, NSF career proposals, you have 3 chances to resubmit. And usually people get it at the third time. But I think in 5 months, I got the response, and they, you know, they, uh, it was a positive, and I got my first NSF. And that NSF career actually changed my whole trajectory, because it allowed me to really concentrate on building my team, um, and really do the kind of research I wanted to do and bring all of my ideas without really worrying about anybody or anything, because I had quote unquote NSF stamp on it. So it allowed me kind of build an independent research much faster than I thought I will be able to do. Also helped me to build my lab. Um, so building a lab for anybody from like sciences, humanities, or education, it's very hard, because it requires space, it requires a lot of investment from the university. But thanks to my NSF career, university actually allowed me to build all those things. And then that also allowed me to bring students and then mentor students and build collaborations across institutions. Um, Again, so following career, I had many more, through the work in the lab, I had many more grants that were extension of that grant, and then publications and work with my students and the mentors and whatnot. And then that led to Fulbright, that led to, me becoming the director of the Caput Center, and then, and, getting my tenure. And last year or 2 years ago, I think I got my full professorship. And and it also allowed me kind of build an opportunity for students and future scholars, that space and that beginning, kind of building community around myself and supporting that community. So because I do this asset-based research, my biggest advice, kind of research-based advice, is find multiple mentors. Um, PhD is super challenging. It is a solo work, even when you are working in a community. At the end of the day, you need to be in front of your computer. You need to be in front of your own work. You need to be able to figure out things for yourself. Um, so even if it's challenging, I would say try to say yes to challenging opportunities and believe in yourself. Write earlier than you think. So right now, I think one of the biggest challenges anybody has is AI. You have research under your fingertips. You can go to Google Scholar, you can download everything, you can use AI and whatnot. You have all these support systems. But I think one of the advantages that I had, and I'm only talking about 10 years ago, we didn't have any of these things 10 years ago. So I would have to go to a library to pull all the readings because printing was expensive for a student. I would have to get all these free resources, stay at the library, read. And that also gave me an advantage and privilege to really be able to think and stay with the readings, right? Because I knew I had a limited time, limited resources. When you have limited time and limited resources, you try to make the best of it, right? So that also forced me to write from like a day one because I did not have an opportunity to read and then to go home and then write later. Um, Again, I have the resources there, so I would have to write up everything. I would have to write my ideas. I would have to write my thinking and literally like type up all the quotes and all the page numbers, everything. So although like right now it sounds laborious because we have all the, you know, things are much easier right now, but I think that really helped me to synthesize ideas and really grapple with the ideas because it gave me time to think. The writing was my time to think. And also reading outside of my discipline and taking classes outside of my discipline. And again, for me, it was protected time for thinking. So advice that I have for you is, you know, my humble advice is to protect your time for thinking. Um, because again, a lot of the PhD, I think, and a lot of the work that we do is sheer ideas, making sense of ideas and making sense of the phenomenon in ways that allows us to engage with the people who've said what they said before us, and then kind of bring those voices together to develop our own voice. So my final reflection without going too deep and then allowing you to ask some questions, immerse yourself in the PhD. I think it's one of the best times because you have access to so many different scholars, so many amazing scholars, so many amazing mentors. I cannot speak enough about how UGA was transformative to me because all of the professors, all the scholars that I worked with, they spent so much time with me, helping me, thinking with me, sharing their insights with me. They also helped me to, again, read broadly, develop my own questions. And also, one of the amazing things, especially I would say for Corey, he allowed me to take risks. I remember when I came to him with my dissertation idea and with my questions that would build on the lethal work. His first thing was, at the time I was thinking about the post-structural theory, he said, Chaknoza, you may not be able to get a job with a post-structural theory. However, if you want to do it, I will still support you. And I think that mattered to me uh, because, you know, it's already hard. The work is already hard, and it's harder when you are trying to do somebody else's work. It has to be your work. It has to be your own passion. Um, and it helped me that the knowing that no matter what I would do, Corey would be behind me. So that was very important. Uh, And then, and my final thing is the goal of a graduate school is, again, as I said, to find your own voice, to become first version of yourself. And another amazing advice that I got from Stephanie, because I would constantly generate ideas, and Stephanie would tell me, Shaknoza, you will have rest of your career to do research, to write papers, and to develop ideas. Let's hone on one thing. Let's develop expertise in one thing, and let's, build your, first version of you. And there will be many, many new versions of Shaknoza as you continue on this road. So that also helped me to kind of be very intentional in relation to what I was going to do, how I was going to do it, how I will be able to do it in a timely manner, and at the same time in ways that I would be able to bring the insights that I had both as a teacher and a developing emergent scholar at the time. So I think that's it. And here are some of my work that came out either recently or since then. I don't know how I selected them, but I thought that, these were some of the important work that I believe that we've been doing in my research team. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for,
Yeah, thank you
go
so much
ahead,
for that
Val.
presentation. Very inspiring. You've done a lot in your just 10-year career, and I know you talked about Corey as being, your mentor and being in your corner, and it sounds like you've done that. I mean, Collins is proof of that in terms of you've mentored him, and I think we're just lucky to get to sit and listen in on this, 25-minute glimpse into your long career. So we appreciate you being here today. With that, I will open up the floor. I'm sure there are some people here who have questions. If you have questions, feel free to, if no one else is talking, just go ahead and jump in and ask those. You can also raise your hand so that we can create a queue or put your questions in the chat as well. The one thing that we're going to ask is that if you can have your camera on when you're asking a question, and then also just telling us a little bit about who you are, where you're at, what you're studying, things like that, so we can create a culture of graduate students who really want to come together to learn more and learn from each other. Because if you have a question, someone else might be thinking of the same thing. So we want to get to know each other in a low risk environment. And with that, I will stop talking and someone else can unmute and ask the very first question.
Hi, Dr. Kayumova. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. My name is Alex, and I am a PhD candidate at the University of Arizona in Tucson. Also a former teacher for like 10 years at the high school level, so I appreciate your journey and um, what you've been able to do. I also really like the idea of becoming the first version of yourself. Like as graduate students, we think we have to have like this very fully realized research agenda and identity as a researcher when really, the opportunity to reinvent yourself in academia is constant. So that's cool. Like Lauren said, you have an impressive resume, but I think aside from being intelligent, well-read, well-researched, it sounds like you also really know how to like sell yourself or communicate to others why your work is meaningful, like the NSF Career Grant, multiple tenure track positions. So I was wondering if you could speak to how you might have been so successful in communicating who you are and what you do.
Ah, that's an excellent question, Alex. And my husband's PhD is from University of Arizona, Tucson, so I know Tucson really well. So I don't know how hot it is right now there, but just wanted to,
109.
yeah,
109.
very hot. Um, that's an excellent question, Alex. I think when I was a PhD student, I remember I would specifically go to Stephanie Jones, and Stephanie Jones is a feminist scholar. She does work in literacy, not in science education. I would specifically go to her sessions at AERA, and I still remember, and I would watch how she would talk about her research, because she would be one of those scholars who would always do this cutting edge work with these unfamiliar terms, unfamiliar theories, the things that are not commonsensical. All these she would use these methods that I've never seen before. And as a somebody with a science and math background, it was mind-boggling to me. It's kind of things that I would consider before coming to the PhD, like, is this really a research? But there was a way for her to talk about meaningfulness of those ideas and the meaningfulness of her work. And she would do it with such a grace, um, not necessarily trying to convince others about what she was doing, but tell the story of her own journey and her own research and why it was important for her. And I think, I still remember my first job talk. I felt like I was emulating Stephanie Jones in that job talk. And it was so fascinating to me because I talked to the dean afterwards, and then she apparently knew Stephanie. And she's like, the first thing she told me, she said it was as if Stephanie was here. And by the way, Stephanie Jones may not even know about this story, but um, I think I was one of those learners. I would just be very quiet and I would watch people very carefully. And now I know it. It's like we talk about genres, right? Like writing a paper is knowing how to write certain kind of communicating in certain kind of genre. Academic talk is communicating in certain kind of genre, and writing a grant is communicating in certain kind of genre. And maybe as my own position as a multilingual person, I developed these strengths in relation to just watching people very carefully and learning those genres. And I think that's what I learned from Stephanie. So every job talk I go to or every talk that I give, I try not to convince people about whether I'm right or wrong, but I try to tell the story of the research and why it's important for me, or why it was important for the students or the teachers, and why is it important for us to think in the ways in which we develop those insights and and then saw tensions. And there's no story of the research that's perfect. There are always tensions, there are always contradictions, there are always things that we makes us grapple with. So I think that's another thing that I always do, to bring that vulnerability as well in relation to opening doors for others to chime in, to bring their own voices rather than closing that conversation off. So I don't know if this really answers your question, Alex, but that's the first thing that came to my mind.
No, it does. The idea of telling the story of your research, what your personal relationship is to it, making it personal, that does make sense. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Kayumova. I really liked how you talked about protecting time for thinking, and I would like to know more about how you protect your time for thinking, because nowadays we're all so distracted and like our brains are just depleted.
Yes, Tasneem, very good question. This is something that I grapple with every single day, and I will just give you one example from my recent action that I took in relation to protecting my time for thinking. So I have right now so many leadership positions. I receive so many emails, and I bet you all receive a lot of emails as well. And with all the emails, with all the distractions, right? Like, it's very hard to have thinking time. And again, I'm going to go back to recent interview because I think it's all over the social media with the Christopher Nolan, and I found out that he apparently does not use or allow any social media or any technology on his set because he believes that the people need to be able to focus on the work, right? And then the writing work that we do is not only bodily, right? It's such a cognitively demanding work, that we do need to protect time to be able to engage with just reading and writing. And so even though it sounds so privileged, like one thing I did So I was receiving lots of administrative, like related to leadership, things that I need to approve, review. And just to give you an idea, maybe like 4 or 5 emails a day, right? And my first instinct was to get all of them done the first thing in the morning. But then I realized that you know, that this is still distracting me because if there is something that I cannot resolve in the moment, I will be carrying it throughout the day. So I sent an email to all involved people yesterday saying that, that I will be only reviewing these requests once a week. I have a dedicated time where I will be reviewing only once a week. I know that there is a sense of urgency from everybody, right? And all the emails and all the requests that we receive, whether it's our daily lives, whether our friends or family, it's urgent for everybody, right? But trying to respond to that sense of urgency, it's impossible. So, um, and I also want to do a good job, right? Reviewing those things and giving my full attention. So this will allow me to do the job at the same time to do the job well while, you know, focusing and giving justice to the other work that I'm responsible for. So that was one tangible action that I took. Another tangible actions that I take, for instance, right? I have limited times where I look at my emails. So I do not check my emails. I do not have access to my emails on my phone. I do not share my phone number with everybody, right? Like I do not use my phone frequently. Like even if you will try to reach out, you will probably not be able to reach out to me because I do not use my phone avidly. So, but all of those decisions are for me very intentional. I have time when I meet with my doctoral students during the week. I also have time where I block off time just to read and write, and it's on my calendar. And I do not, let's say, I Collins's amazing friend and a colleague, you- he may ask to meet with me at 2 p.m. today, but if I have a reading and writing time that I put there, I'm not available at 2 p.m. Although, you know, it it required time for me because you may think, but what if it's important for Collins? But it's not about the Collins. It's also about my kids. It's also about my family. It's also about my partner. Everybody has a sense of urgency. And I had to make these hard decisions and stay with these hard decisions for myself. Otherwise, I do not do justice for anybody. So I don't know if it answers your question, Tasneem. Also, I received a wonderful feedback from Stephanie Jones. Uh, she told me something similar when I was becoming, when I just started my job. Like she said, Chaknoza, there will be lots of requests for lots of different things. I promise you, she said, they will keep coming. It's important that you protect your time for you to be able to get your tenure. Because if you do not have time to publish and do your work, you will not be able to get your tenure, which means you're not going to be able to stay in your job. And she gave me this, phrase. She said, "Thank you so much. I would love to do this. However, unfortunately, I have some other commitments. I will not be able to give justice to this work right now, but I would love to take you up on this in the near future." So I literally wrote it up and memorized it, and I learned to say it.
We still have time for some more questions. I do have a question for you, but I would just want to open it up and see if there's anyone else who'd like to unmute before I go ahead and ask. Using our teacher wait time, I will go ahead and ask then. So you, how do you decide on what's important for your research? I also work on a really big NSF grant right now, and I'm the only graduate student. So a lot of the things that you talked about from your graduate career, I'm really resonating with in my current position. And as the project evolves, like every year, there's kind of new aspects of the project. So right now we're at the end of our project. We just got a no-cost extension for a year 5. So we're really focused on leadership right now for our teachers. But in the past, we've been focused on curriculum, or we've been focused on assessment, like a lot of different areas. And so I did kind of what you suggested, which is I've had a toe or sometimes more involved in all of these different things, but it's led to me being curious about so many things that it's not really possible to do everything. So I'm curious if you have any advice on there's too many things that I want to do. How do I really narrow that down and know? I don't want to say what the right thing is because like we said, there's not necessarily a right thing, but how do I know what the first version of myself should be with too many things to choose from?
This is an excellent question, Lauren. Um, I think at the time I was very intentional. Number one, I wanted I for me to develop an expertise and to be good at something, I quickly realized that I needed to work with people who know deeply about what they are doing research on. For instance, I told you about the Joe Tobin. So I took a class from Joe Tobin. He's a famous anthropologist, and he developed uh, video cued interviews and has done an amazing job at the international context. And he was such an expert of what he did. He knew ins and outs of it. Um, and I knew that for me, I needed a support of the people around myself to develop an expertise on something. Let's say assessment. Yes, we did assessments, but I did not have experts in assessment. For instance, if I was at UC Boulder and if I was working with Erin Furtak in her project, right? The project might have been a big project, but Erin is known for the assessments, right? Like, I think if I were in that position back then, like if Erin was happened to be my advisor, I would probably build and assuming that I have interest in that area, I would probably build on the notions of assessments, right? Because I have an expert who will help me to really deeply dive into these ideas. So, as you know, for instance, I do an identity work. So, Corey has a very close friend who happens to be Heidi Carlone. And Heidi Carlone and I are right now very, very close friends and colleagues, and we do everything. We actually have a book that's going to come out on identity from Harvard. Um, so I not only looked at the interests that I had, but I also looked at the people and the resources UGA had and the scholars UGA had in relation to, for me, developing a deep expertise in that area. So UGA at the time, and again, these things constantly change even within the institutions. UGA at the time and very strong feminist scholars who were working on new materialism, post-structuralism, and those ideas. And they were deeply, deeply engaged in material and discursive entanglements. And I knew that if I will be able to really learn it and apply it, I will be able to carve out a space for myself, even though the topic is the same, but the looking at the topic and the lens would be different. Um, I also intentionally stayed with the, let's say, multilingual learners and the learning because I was interested in the processes of learning. And in science education, we do a lot about the teachers, and I do, and I still work with the teachers as well, do not get me wrong. But I was curious about really how does learning happens? And we have all these theories and whatnot, but how would I study learning? Like, how do I go and see learning? How would I recognize learning? So, and then that kind of led me to seek out experts in this area. So I would say, Lauren, look at the resources that you have intentionally because one of the most important things your PhD program is supposed to do for you is to give you access to expertise in ways that you can assume that expertise is yours. Um, and I think that's what helped me, like really intentionally looking at the expertise around me and see, you know, which one I want to which one really will help me. Because again, Corey might be doing all this different work, but his expertise is with one thing. He would not be able to give me feedback on, you know what I mean? He would probably give me feedback, but he wouldn't be able to support me in ways that I need him to support and other things, you know? So I had to look at who will be in my dissertation committee, who are the experts, and also who are also willing because um, scholars, depending on the time in their own career and everything that's happening both at work and their own personal lives, not all of them will have time to support you. And I had those people who were willing to support me with their expertise, and that just happened then kind of naturally evolved to become my expertise. I don't know if it answers your question, but
Yeah, it definitely does. It helps for sure. It's still I like the idea of like finding the people who have the expertise and getting there. And I have some of that in my program. So
yeah.
I'm lucky to have a really great advisor as well. So
Yeah, I will give you one example. So one of my advisees recently, she's really interested in simulations and NetLogo. We, as a one of the grants that I have right now, we are developing simulations. And I told her that if she's interested in that research for her dissertation, then I will not be enough to support her. That she needs to go out and seek out and work with a certain type of people and do certain kind of research and do certain kind of publications. Um, to really you know what I mean? So I will be very honest with my students and say like it's not that I'm gonna stop being your advisor, but always tell them honestly like if they are gonna go in a certain direction, who do they need in their corners? And I think that's what Colin said in relation to he approached me and I said, well, you need to go and talk to John Sutledge. You know what I mean? Like finding the people and then making sure that they have time and interest in supporting you as you are diving deeply into that.
is there anybody else who has some final questions here? We still have about 8 minutes left. We have one in the chat there.
I can read it.
Okay.
Thank you, Devika. But based on SF work as a middle school science teacher, how does advice translate to EDD students who work full time? Devika, I actually started teaching. I taught one course last year in ADD program, so I kind of know like I don't know your specific situation, but I know the difference between EDD and then PhD. For the EDD students, my biggest advice is to really focus on a problem of practice that you're seeing in your school, whether it's you're in your classroom or in your setting, in your context, focus on a problem of practice and then start working towards, in all of your classes that you are taking in your program, just, look at all readings and everything that you are doing, from the lens of that problem of practice, and start writing. And in all of your courses, just write the different parts of your dissertation, because your situation is very different than the PhD students. Um, so I would say, make the best of your classes, use your classes to write different chapters of your dissertation, and then try to work with your advisor to find the problem of practice that you are interested in exploring and figuring out how you are going to tackle that problem of practice. And also remember, for you, um, you want to do more practical research. So try to have very strong boundaries in relation to um, what you are going to be doing in relation to data collection, and what you are going to be looking for the problem practice in ways that it's not going to become a project of your life. You have to have very, very strong boundaries, both in terms of context, in terms of research questions, and what you are going to be looking at. I don't know if it answers your question, but that's what I noticed, the biggest difference between PhD and EDD programs. And I've been assigned 4 or 5 EDD students, who are going to be doing dissertation with me, and they all were able to finish their first 3 chapters of their dissertation proposal within 5 months, because we just focused on their problem of practice, and then they just followed my advice in relation to using each class to develop their dissertation chapters again. But do not take my advice as the advice. Please work with your advisor and follow your advisor's advice, who probably knows better your context and where you are and what would be best for you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kiyumura. I'm a PhD student at Arizona State University in Phoenix, so not
Even more
close to
hot.
Tucson and very hot. Yeah, maybe hotter than Tucson.
Hotter, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, not easy here life, especially when I'm doing a PhD with like a 8 year 8 year old daughter. So I was shocked. You mentioned you have three during your PhD. So I really want to ask this like a realistic question, like a work-life balance. How could you navigate like 3 kids and also very productive PhD work? Sometimes I know, yeah, maybe like time is very limited. So I feel like, yes, for example, I feel myself is not very productive. So I really want to learn from you. Thank you.
Um, Thank you so much for your question, and then stay cool, please, in Arizona. I think, I believe people who are, and please take these words of success and all these general words that I'm saying with a sense of caution. But I think people who thrive in academia have to be very disciplined about their own time. Very, very, because one of the biggest advantages and disadvantages of academic work, being in a PhD program and then becoming a faculty, you have all this time that's flexibly can be used by you. But then at the same time, like your yearly reviews, your dissertation, your tenure, all of that time is going to creep up so fast. um, that while you think that you have all this time, it feels like you have no time to be able to do everything. So one of the biggest advantages that I had, that I used this mindset of being a school teacher. And as a school teacher, I had to show up at work at 7 a.m. It was non-negotiable. And I had to be at work from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. every single day, right? That was non-negotiable. That was my work. And when I stepped into a PhD program, I promised myself I will use the same mindset. Yes, we have a lot of privileges, but there are people who work outside, like teachers who have kids, but they have to show up to work, right? So I said to myself, I will do the same thing. I will dedicate certain time, like similar kind of discipline to my PhD work. And then when I'm done with that time, I'm going to dedicate myself fully to my kids, to be a mom, to be a partner, to be other things, right? And I think I still keep that up. Like I have work hours where I fully dedicate to work 4 or 5 hours, and my family knows it, my kids know it. But then I have 24 hours, right? Like, but then once I'm done with my work, I fully dedicate, I'm a fully present with them. I do not use the flexibility that comes with the work to fill that time up for other things. I have a routine, walking routine, running routine, biking routine. I have all those routines and I stay with them. Like as if I have um hourly job, like 7 to 5 hourly job.
Yeah, thank you. That's very helpful,
You
actually.
know,
Yeah, yes, yes.
I, but I'm not the best in terms of balancing. I'm sure there are better people who do a better job in terms of balancing, but it's also power and privilege, right? As a minority woman, I probably have internal fears that I always have to do above and beyond to be able to get my tenure, to be able to be in certain places. You know what I mean? To be able to get something. I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I do have those fears, right? So I think uh for right or wrong reasons, um, they also help me to kind of stay focused and to stay disciplined with my commitments.
Mm.
It's much easier than done. I mean, it's much easier to say than done. But again, um, yes, and your daughter goes to school, utilize those times the best you can. And
Okay.
then when she comes home, then that way you can be actually with her and then be a mom and then feel good about being that too. Because I think one of the hardest thing that I had to work for myself is feeling not enoughness. Like when you are a mom, when you are a wife, when you are a daughter, when you have all these roles that we have, right? Like, and then in a job, like there's constant feeling of not enoughness, regardless of how much you're doing, right? Like, regardless how much you present, regardless how much you publish, this constant sense of not enoughness. So I had to work through that and saying, like, again, and in the beginning, I would write things down. I would say, like, these are the things that I did today.
Mm.
This is huge. Like, you know what I mean? That would be affirmative for myself. Like, I answered 10 emails. I did ABCD. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the work is unseen. So I would write those things down and then say, you know, good. Now tomorrow I will be doing ABCDs and then again protecting my time.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you, Shira. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, and thank you, Dr. Kaimova. I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up here. So we so appreciate your time and being here with us this afternoon. Um, just sharing my screen here. So we do have our next webinar coming up. Dr. Felicia Moore-Mensah will be here with us on August 28th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So please, if you're able to join us for that as well, we'd love to have such a great turnout. I think, Collins, this is probably at least one of the biggest turnouts that I've had. So Dr. Kayamova, that really speaks to people really knowing who you are in your field and wanting to be here to listen and hear what you have to say, which obviously was so wonderful.
Thank you.
And we appreciate your time. So
Thank you
with
so
that,
much.
I think we will go ahead and end it. And everyone have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Good luck. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you.